Good afternoon, everyone. I am sitting in my office. It's too flippin' cold to sit outside. I think I jinxed myself when I posted that picture of my terrace and said that I'd like to start doing my readings outside in the afternoons because it snowed last night and it was cold enough that it was still there when I got up this morning. And yeah, it's not very pleasant out there, but one can hope. It is still very early. It's actually early for our snow to be gone at all, so I really shouldn't complain. I think I'm just, itching to get outside. Speaking of which, today is Freedom Day. Our quarantine following our youngest daughter's return from Iceland is over, and I actually get to drive over and get my own groceries. And I get to go to the vet and pick something up for our old cat who has his own personal pharmacy in my kitchen. And in both places, I get to sit in the parking lot while people bring things out to me because that's a lot of how things are getting done around here right now. So it's interesting. Happy Good Friday. I hope that all of you have plans to stay home and not go visiting on the Easter weekend. I also hope that you have plans for like I can't talk today. Virtual chats and dinners with your family. It's kind of a weird year. Our two older daughters are, of course, on the other side of the river from us, and the border is closed, and I can't even drive over and wave to them from the street. And no, still no grandbabies. So, anyway, I will keep you posted on that. I haven't heard from my daughter today, so maybe keep our fingers crossed and hope for the best there. Might be nice to have an Easter baby. I wouldn't mind that a bit. I'm just going to be happy to have a baby, even if I have to visit virtually for a while. It's all good. So we are on to chapter 16 of Gwyneth Ever After today. And, and yeah, that's it. I'll get started. Staring after Gwyn, Gareth scratched absently at his jawline. A blob of congealed oats stuck to the stubble that had formed since his morning shave. He grimaced, swiping at the spot again with the back of his wrist, but he only succeeded in making a worse mess. Scowling, he returned to fishing oatmeal from the bathtub's drain. Grayish goop oozed between his fingers as he plopped it into the bucket. Gwyn looked exhausted. Being up with the kids all night would have something to do with it, but he was certain his own behavior had also played a role. Asking questions that had triggered her tears and then leaving her alone to deal with her upset hadn't just been unchivalrous, it had been downright wrong. Guilt shafted between his ribs. She deserved better from him, deserved to be held and comforted, but he'd been too busy picking out the shrapnel of harsh words directed at another man from his own soul, too busy wrestling with an image of his own daughter weeping for a father she thought didn't care. He slapped another handful of ooze into the bucket. Logic told him Sean was right about Amy being different from Katie, and about his own situation being different from what Gwyn had described. Guilt, however, hadn't turned out to be terribly logical so far. Then again, neither was anything else in his life right now. Promises he'd made to an ex-wife who meant nothing to him, but who held the key to the heart of a daughter he hadn't seen since her second birthday. A comfort level with Gwyn's family that surpassed how he felt with his own kin. An attraction to Gwyn herself that rocked him to his core. More oatmeal spattered into the bucket. He could still walk away. Should walk away. The way he'd handled last night proved he wasn't ready to take on anything major in his life right now. He had Amy to think about, and 16 years of lost time to make up for. It was the worst possible time for a romantic involvement, especially one of the proportions promised by Gwyn. Gwyn of the quick, warm humor and guileless honesty, of the bottomless summer's lake blue eyes and wild auburn hair, of the cluttered life and formidable strength, of the many, many layers that would take a lifetime to uncover. Oh yes, he should definitely walk away. He'd be a fool if he didn't, and perhaps a greater fool if he did. Gwyn peeked into the living room at Nicholas and Maggie, absorbed for the moment in a cartoon, then continued down the hallway to the kitchen, where she set about restoring order to at least one part of her life. She cleared and scrubbed, washed and dried, and had a long, serious, and well overdue discussion with herself. Or at least she tried. Unfortunately, the memory of Gareth's departure the night before kept getting in the way. How he'd stood up in the wake of her meltdown, walking out in a silence that had spoken volumes about his level of discomfort. Gwyn threw the dishcloth into the sudsy water, sending a spray of bubbles across the counter. Why, oh, why had she opened up the whole personal arena last night? Things had been going so well until then. Liar, said her little voice. Fine. Then things had at least been under control until then. They'd been friendly, but not involved. Her little voice made a rude noise. And now he was back. She stared at her reflection in the dark glass of the wall oven, studying the haphazard ponytail atop her head, the dark circles under her eyes, the face she hadn't even had time to wash, let alone apply makeup to. He was back, apologizing to her for his abrupt departure and rolling up his sleeves to get involved in her family once more. And she didn't know why, and she didn't know what to do about it, and she was scared half to death. She really needed to get a grip on herself. Abandoning her kitchen cleaning efforts, she grabbed the wicker laundry basket from the table. The scent of freshly washed and dried fabric rose from it, a note of normality in a life that had otherwise completely strayed from its chosen course, a life she needed to put back on track, today. Balancing the basket on her hip, she scooped up a stack of Katie's books with her free arm and marched down the hallway. Maggie and Nicholas were still in the living room, oblivious to her presence. They sat on the couch, their two blonde heads, Maggie's hair long and curly like her own, and Nicholas's short and straight but like his father's, side by side. A sudden pang shot through her. They'd missed out on so much, not having a father in their lives. Having Gareth come into their home had highlighted a need that none of them, including her, had even known they had. And now, having highlighted that need, and having begun to fill it, the pang turned to a knife, carving her heart in two, underscoring the need to return life to normal. Now, before any more damage was done. If Gareth had been just an ordinary man, then maybe. But he wasn't, and she had no business risking her children's hearts in order to indulge her own personal fantasy. Gareth Connor no more belonged in her life than she did in his. Regardless of how kind and gentle he was with her children, or how much of a spark existed between the two of them, in just over a week he would leave their world and return to his own. It was up to her to make sure her children weren't destroyed a second time by that leaving. Determination fueling her stride, Gwyn climbed the stairs. She reached the top hallway as Gareth emerged from the bathroom to the accompaniment of a gurgle from the bathtub. "Done," he said triumphantly. He hefted a bucket of congealed ick in his hand, his soaked shirt molded to the lean six-pack beneath it. Gwyn tore her eyes from the clinging fabric, and her imagination from what lay beneath. Clutching at her resolve with both hands, she set the books she carried onto the folded clothes and shifted the basket to her other hip. She'd come up here for a reason, an important one. "Thank you," she said. "I'm sorry if I sounded ungrateful earlier. I really do appreciate your help. Not just today, but all of it. I don't know what I'd have done without you this last couple of days." Gareth raised a quizzical eyebrow. "You sound like a kid who's been coached in what to say to some cantankerous old uncle. You don't have to apologize, Gwyn. I just don't want you to think I'm not grateful. I never thought that. But I'm not looking for gratitude either. I'm enjoying myself." "Entertaining my sick kids and cleaning out my bathtub?" she asked dryly. His smile made her toes dig into the hall carpet runner. He shook his head. Sorry, we're getting texts. I forgot to mute my phone. Forgive that. His smile made her toes dig into the hall carpet runner. He shook his head. "No, being with you." Before Gwyn could do more than draw a startled breath at his unexpected and confounding honesty, he dropped a towel onto the floor near the top of the stairs and set the bucket on it. "I've missed out on the family thing, remember?" he added. "It's nice to be a part of yours for a while." Oh, no, wait. That was why she'd come up here, to tell him he couldn't. "And besides, I have ulterior motives. You wouldn't happen to have something dry I could borrow, would you?" She stared at him, panic licking through her. "Pardon?" He plucked at his soaking, oatmeal-smeared shirt. "Something dry?" "No, not that." She shook her head. "I meant pardon about the other thing." "What ulterior motives?" Gareth undid the top button on his shirt. "Sorry, that's a secret." She shifted the basket again, holding it between them, gripping it with traitorous hands that urged her to toss it aside and take over Gareth's tantalizing task. The temperature in the hallway shot up, flushing her cheeks with heat and turning her mouth dry. "A secret?" Lord, S was a hard sound to make with her tongue cleaved to the roof of her mouth. She forced her gaze to remain on his face instead of following the path of his hands. He released another button, then a third, then a fourth. The heat in her cheeks spread, snaking a slow, traitorous path to other parts of her anatomy. Any resolve she'd had when she'd climbed the stairs became a fleeting memory. His half-smile knowing, teasing, wicked. Gareth undid the final button. He said, "but I'll give you a hint. It hinges on kids recovering and turning their mother free again." He slid the shirt from his shoulders. Gwyn inhaled sharply and forgot all about not staring. She'd known the man was achingly gorgeous. After seeing him on all those times on the big screen, how could she not? But the screen had never done him full justice. It couldn't. Not when he was so much more in person. So much more. Her gaze traced the broad slope of his shoulders, muscled, defined, offering a woman's head a sanctuary like none she'd ever known. His chest, deep, powerful, inviting her touch and promising. Gareth cleared his throat. Gwyn's gaze flew up to meet the smolder of his, as if he'd heard her every thought, felt every frantic beat of her heart. "A dry shirt?" he reminded her huskily. She fled. So things are getting interesting. I'm having so much fun reading this book with you guys again. It's been years since I did. So I hope that you are enjoying it as much as I am. It's fun hanging out with you guys. I hope that you guys all have a good Easter. Stay safe. Find the joy in the weekend and in your safety. And just, hunker down. We're going to get through this. And I will try to keep you entertained along the way. I shut the door today to keep the noise out. So there's a couple of snoozing cats behind me. But apart from that, no visits from animals today. Perhaps tomorrow. It'll be a little bit quieter during the day with my husband technically not working and not on the telephone. So apart from that, that is it for today. Again, have a good day. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you here tomorrow. Bye.